the emperor who declared war on the ocean. The year is 40 AD. The most powerful man on earth is standing on a beach in northern France, staring at the English Channel. He has 30,000 soldiers behind him. He has warships. He has siege weapons. He has the full military might of the Roman Empire at his back. And he has just ordered his men to attack the water. Not the ships on the water, not an enemy across the water itself.
This is the story of Caligula, the emperor who didn't just lose his mind. He lost it loudly, publicly, and in front of the entire ancient world.
Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus was born in 12 AD to one of Rome's most celebrated military families. His father, Germanicus, was a beloved general, the kind of man Romans wrote poems about. His mother, Agrippina the Elder, was fierce, politically savvy, and completely fearless. As a child, Gaius traveled with his father's legions along the Rhine frontier. The soldiers adored him. They dressed him in a tiny military uniform complete with miniature boots, caligae in Latin. They called him Caligula, Little Boots. It was meant to be endearing. It was not the name of a man who would one day go to war with the sea. When Caligula came to power in 37 AD at just 24 years old, Rome was ecstatic. The previous emperor, Tiberius, had been a paranoid recluse who spent his final years on the island of Capri, while Rome rotted under the rule of his secret police. People had been executed for looking at Tiberius the wrong way, for dreaming about him, for carrying a coin with his face into a bathroom. Caligula was young. He was charismatic. He was the son of the great Germanicus. Romans lined the streets and wept with joy when he arrived. In his first months, he was generous, reasonable, even merciful. He freed political prisoners. He abolished unfair taxes. He put on spectacular games and feasts for the public. Then something happened. 7 months into his reign, Caligula fell violently ill. Nobody knows exactly what it was. A fever, a breakdown, possibly poisoning. He nearly died. And when he recovered, he was not the same man. What came back from that illness was something Rome had never seen before. The stories started slowly, then all at once. He began appearing in public dressed as various gods: Neptune, Mercury, Venus. He would hold court while wearing a golden beard and carrying a trident. He demanded that temples remove the heads from their statues of Jupiter and replace them with his own likeness. He had his own sister, Drusilla, deified as a goddess while she was still alive. When she died, he declared a public period of mourning during which it was illegal to laugh, bathe, or dine with your family. He made his horse, Incitatus, a priest. Some sources claim he intended to make the horse a consul, one of the two most powerful political positions in Rome. Whether this was madness or a deliberate insult to the Senate, nobody was quite sure. Maybe it was both. He held conversations with the moon. He would stay up all night on the palace roof, shouting invitations to the lunar goddess to come share his bed. But none of it, compares to what happened on the coast of Gaul in the summer of 40 AD. Caligula had marched his legions north under the pretense of invading Britain. This was a legitimate military objective. Julius Caesar had attempted it decades earlier, and conquering Britain would have been a massive political victory. The army marched, the ships were assembled. The soldiers stood ready on the beach at Boulogne-sur-Mer, looking out at the gray water of the English Channel. And then Caligula gave the order, not to board the ships, not to sail, but to line up along the shore and attack the ocean with their spears and swords. He called it a war against Neptune, god of the sea. He stood in his chariot, dressed in the breastplate of Alexander the Great, and declared victory over the waves. Then he ordered his men to fill their helmets with seashells. These, he announced, were the spoils of war, the treasures of the conquered ocean. He loaded them onto carts and sent them back to Rome as trophies of his great military triumph. The soldiers obeyed. Because what else do you do when the most powerful man in the world tells you to stab the ocean? Caligula returned to Rome and demanded a triumph, a massive military parade celebrating his victories. The Senate, increasingly terrified, played along. But the days of playing along were running out. On January 24th, 41 AD, less than 4 years after taking power, Caligula was assassinated in a tunnel beneath the Palatine Games. Members of his own Praetorian Guard stabbed him 30 times. His wife was killed. His infant daughter was killed, her head smashed against a wall. Rome exhaled. The Senate immediately moved to erase his memory, destroying his statues, striking his name from records, pretending the whole thing had never happened. The Romans had a term for it, damnatio memoriae, condemnation of memory. But you can't erase a man who went to war with the ocean. 2,000 years later, we still don't fully understand Caligula. Was he truly insane? Was he performing madness as a political weapon, keeping the Senate too afraid and confused to challenge him? Was the illness that changed him responsible for permanent damage, encephalitis perhaps, or a form of psychosis triggered by fever? Ancient sources like Suetonius and Cassius Dio paint him as a monster, but those sources were written long after his death by men with their own political reasons to darken his legacy. The truth, like most things buried in history, is more complicated than the legend. What we know for certain is this. For 3 years and 10 months, a young man in a golden beard stood at the center of the most powerful empire on earth and did things that made the rest of the world question the nature of power, sanity, and what happens when one person has too much of both. And somewhere on a beach in northern France, the English Channel is still out there, unbothered, unconquered, indifferent to the little emperor who once declared it his enemy. The ocean won. If history buried it, we find it. Subscribe to Buried History for new videos every week.